Hi, I'm Dave Statter of Statter911.com. We're here today at DC Fire and EMS Department's Engine 16 in Tower 3, just a few blocks from the White House. Today, Firehouse.com is shooting a public service announcement to help ensure that every firefighter wears a seatbelt. It's part of the National Fire Service Seatbelt Pledge. One of the people here today is DC Fire and EMS Department Chief Dennis Rubin.
Chief, what do you believe the chief's role is in ensuring seatbelt compliance?
To take a leadership role and to figure out ways to enforce the seatbelt rules and laws in a way that makes sense for the membership. Let me see if I can say it right. In other words, firefighters tend to resist wearing seatbelts, not because they're bad people, not because they don't want the protection, but simply you'll hear things like, I've got to get off the apparatus quick. I've got to be in a position to put my air pack on. So I think the fire chief's role is to guide them in a way that enforces the idea of always wearing the seatbelt and the reasons why. And I think also looking towards the future is to figure out ways that passive constraints can be incorporated into the seatbelt process to keep our members safe.
A few months ago, you committed to this National Fire Service Seatbelt Pledge, if I'm not mistaken. What do you have to say to other chiefs about this pledge?
Well, that it's important. We know that more than 100 firefighters will die in the line of duty, and about 20 to 25% of those folks will die responding to returning from alarms, and that's simply unacceptable. By making certain that folks are wearing their seatbelts, not only are we complying with the law, but we're doing exactly what I think is necessary to cut into that ridiculously high number. On a regular basis, we see where firefighters are ejected from vehicles, and through own personal experiences of responding to vehicle accidents, that's almost a scenario that's not survivable. So by wearing the seatbelt, it becomes a process where the member stays much safer, and it simply is one of the most important things that we can do.
Do you personally wear a seatbelt?
I do all the time. I think my behavior of wearing a seatbelt goes back to actually driving the fire apparatus. When I had a chance to drive the fire apparatus here, it was a very large, very old 1968 Ford fire engine. And I simply had to have the seatbelt on to stay restrained in the seat to be able to drive correctly. And that behavior has simply followed me throughout the past 37 years, if you will, of my career. Even when I'm in the jump seat, I had a chance over a few weekends ago to spend some time doing a presentation in upstate New York. We had a chance to respond to a house fire, and lo and behold, I found the seat belts on the rig and wore them as everybody kind of looked at me funny. But the other thing I noticed, as I buckled up in a place called Patch Hog, so did all the rest of the members.
You were unusual back in the early days, back in the late 60s, early 70s, to wear a seatbelt. That was not the common thing.
Well, the other thing, too, is that the fire apparatus was a little bit different, the configuration, and I think it was a little easier to be able to sit down, to be able to thread your arms through your turnout coat, having your air pack on, and then make the snap with the seatbelt. I hope that we look towards the future, though, and begin building constraints that are passive. In other words, when you go on a ride at King's Dominion or any other major amusement park and you get on some of those spine-tingling, hair-raising rides, you don't have a choice whether you're belted in or not. And I see fire apparatus of the future having that type of configuration. In fact, I've urged some of our members to get involved with NFPA 1901 committee and to play an active role in that process.
As a fire chief, you've had to discipline a lot of people through your career. That's maybe not the most pleasant thing. Should a firefighter be disciplined for not wearing a seatbelt?
I would say absolutely. But what I'd rather focus on is I've had the extreme displeasure of letting 3 mothers know that their sons were never coming home. 2 were from heart attacks, 1 firefighter in a house fire situation, and I'm talking about as being the fire chief. And that's the worst day of your life. I couldn't imagine looking a family in the face and telling them that their son or daughter's not coming home simply because they didn't wear a seatbelt. Discipline is part of the process, unfortunately, but that's the final stage of behavior change. I hope that we can reinforce the idea of seatbelts. I think the effort that Dr. Clark is putting forth to get the message out, to talk about it, to make some sense, I hope is changing behaviors. And quite frankly, I think I see that across the country already.
Do you see a connection between wearing your seatbelt and that policy and just the general safety policies? Is there a connection?
I think that there is, and that is that we are willing to say we're going to slow down for just a few minutes and make sure that the snaps are correctly snapped on my coat. Of course, that the seatbelt's on, that I have my coat liner and helmet ready to go and hood. And it all makes for one collective package. It may take an extra 30 or 60 seconds to arrive, but when we arrive, we know we're going to do a lot better job for the customer and, of course, get to come home again. The story I like to tell, and I've told it often, is that of Sandy Lee. What a hero, what a close friend. I love that lady to death. And when she went out and began discussing her presentation of being caught under the wheels, she always closed it by saying, because of me that day, she took personal responsibility, and most people don't. The engine company 22, never got to the apartment fire. The ladder truck she was riding on never got there. The battalion chief for medic unit, they were all treating her multi-systems trauma. And quite frankly, I think we have to recognize if we receive that level of injury, our fire department's not going to be able to function.
And for those who don't know, Sandy Lee was a firefighter in Prince George's County, Maryland, who fell off the fire engine leaving the Tuxedo Chevrolet fire station.
Heading to an apartment fire, and her personal accountability and responsibility, and it goes right back to seatbelts once again, though, but is incredible. She was always a good friend, and she rose to a heroic level by taking that personal responsibility and reminding all of us a couple of more seconds might be the difference between our life and death, but also whether we're going to serve the public that we've raised our hand and swore to protect.
In general, you've said it here, you support the National Fire Service Seatbelt Pledge. Your encouragement to other fire chiefs?
It's something that you have to do. It's a journey that you must really take. We were lucky enough to be selected as a city to be the national kickoff, if you will, and we still have problems. If I told you that 100% of the time every Washington, D.C. firefighter wears their seatbelt, I know I'd be fibbing, so I won't do that. But you know what? Today it's a higher percentage than yesterday. Hopefully tomorrow will be a higher percentage than today, and I would urge every chief to think about their sworn responsibility to protect their members, their number one duty, and to insist that seatbelts be worn by whatever means necessary.
Is there anything else that you can suggest that you're doing in this regard, or any suggestions in general that you have for firefighters?
I think the biggest issue that I see is for the next level of engineering controls to take a look at the job functions that we do. Our members are very aggressive, interior, great firefighters, and I don't ever want to see that go away. I had a chance to work at Engine 10, one of the busiest in this nation for sure, for about 6 years, and I know how important it is to get in there to put the fire out to rescue the people. So I think the engineering piece is the next hurdle, if you will, the next horizon, where we can design a system in such a way that's firefighter friendly and that nobody will resist. Chief Brunacini, one of my personal heroes, retired Phoenix Fire Department, what he did, maybe we all need to think about, and that is to remove the air packs from the apparatus, remove that hazard, if you will, or the need not to wear a seatbelt. What a brave move on his part. What a tremendous national leader Alan Brunacini is because of that. Maybe we can incorporate the idea of wearing the seatbelt with the air pack combination in a way that engineeringly, if that's a good word to use, makes sense.